right. 19B3. That's great. 19B3. Okay, here we go. 19B3. Tanu Rabbanon. We're in the 19B3 right-hand column of the article. About 15 lines on the bottom, but it's going to go quickly here. Tanu Rabbanon. Pamachas, one time, Olu Kol Yisrael, regular Yerushalayim. All of Klal Yisrael went up to Jerusalem for one of the Yom Tovim, for one of the festivals. So they were Oile Regel, one of the pilgrimages. And because of the drought, the bottom line was there was no water to drink. So Halach Naktimon Ben Gurion Eitzel Odoinechon. So Naktimon went to one of the Goyish patricians who had major water reservoirs. Amalai, he told him, Halaveni Shteim Esrim Ayonis Mayim Lo'ile Regolim. Lend me 12 wells of water for the use of, for the Oile Regolim, for the pilgrims. And I will give you back 12 wells of water. And if I do not give back the same amount of water that I took from you, okay, I will give you 12 talents of kesef. We're talking 72,000 silver dinars. We're talking about an enormous amount of money, right? The cover is a man, and they set a time. So of course the guy took this up because he said it's a drought. I'll give him the water. The rain is not going to come to fill this up, and I'll end up with 72,000 silver talents. When the time came and the rain had not yet fallen to replenish the wells, Bishachris in the morning, Sholach Loi, the guy sent to Naktimon. Sent to me the water or the money that you owe me. Sholach Loi, so Naktimon sent back to him, I still got the rest of the day. Don't push me. The whole day is mine to repay back the water. But in the afternoon, the guy sent him another message. Send me the water or the money you owe me. Send him back. I still have the time of the day. I still got the afternoon. In the late afternoon, he sent them again. Give me back my water or the money you owe me. I still have time in the day. So the guy mocked Nakdimon. Omar, he said, a whole year, no rain has fallen. We're now on Chaf Amid Aleph, 20A1, today's daf. And now rain is going to fall. The guy went to the bathhouse with complete joy, confident that Rav Nakdima was going to have to pay him 72,000 silver talents by the night time. While the guy was entering the bathhouse in joy, Nakdima went into the Beis Hamikdash completely depressed. He wrapped himself in a talis, and he stood in davening. And he said in front of the Rebbeinu Shlomo, the master of the world, no, it is clearly known before you that I did not do this to undertake to provide the water for the Oile Regalim, for the pilgrims, for my own personal honor. That was not my intention. I didn't do it for the honor of my father's home. I did it for your honored creator, Rebbeinu Shalom. So that there should be water available for your pilgrims who are coming up to be Oile Regel to you. Miyad niskarchu shemayim ba'oven. Immediately the sky became overcast with clouds. V'yerdu gishomim ad shimalu shtei esrei mayonis mayim v'yisiru. And rain fell until the 12 wells that were borrowed from the guy were filled up with water to the level which they held when Naktiman had borrowed the water. And it went over that level. It went even further. It completely overfilled, completely overfilled the water. So now the guy had more water than he started with. No. When the guy came out of the bathhouse, Naktima was coming out of the Beis Hamikdash. And they saw each other. Amalai. So now Naktima said to the guy, now you should give me money for the surplus money, the surplus water that you got. That you got over and above that you lent me, because now your wells are completely full. Amalai. So the guy said to the Naktimai, I know that the Holy One, blessed be He, did not agitate His whole world by sending this rain, except on your account. Nonetheless, I still have a taina, an argument against you, in which I can collect the 72,000 silver talents that I thought I was going to get. Which, what is it? Because the sun has already set. The sun set already. It was already nighttime before the rain fell. It means it was after the time that you had to pay back. Which means that the rain fell in my possession, because you were supposed to pay back by nightfall, and the rain fell after nightfall. Nakdiman re-entered the Beis Hamikdash. He wrapped himself again and he stood in tefillah. And he said again in front of the Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the world, make it known that you have beloved ones in the universe. Immediately the clouds dispersed, and the sun shone through, demonstrating that the day had not ended, and that the Nakdiman had repaid the water in time before nightfall. But at that moment, the guy said to him, had not the sun pierced the clouds, I would have had an argument against you, to collect my money from you. Tana, we learned, his name was Baini. Why was he given the name Nakdimain? Because the sun pierced the clouds on his behalf. Very good. Tanu Rabbana. Famous, this is the famous story of Nakdimain. This is a very famous story. There are other famous stories coming up as well. I hope my father pops on, because one of them my father used to dramatize when he used to tell us this as a child. Tanu Rabbanan, Shloisha Nak Demolahem Chama Bavuran. There were 3 people on whose behalf the sun stayed in the east. In other words, it froze in the sky for hours, so that nightfall was delayed. Moshe, the Yeshua, then Nakdimain Ben Gurion that we just talked about. Bishleimon, Nakdimain Ben Gurion Gemara. Now the story of Nakdimain is known from tradition; it was passed down. Yeshua Nami Kra, the story of Yeshua that the sun froze in the sky, is from the Nevi'im. It says it in the prophets. And the sun stood still, and the moon stood in its place. In other words, they were fighting against, I think, Yericho or whatever it was. and the sun stood in the middle so that they could continue fighting until nighttime. And so they extended the day by another 6 hours by stopping the sun. So before we go further, I once again here you see the great Yesod. We think that time and aging are the same thing. In fact, they are not. Time is the movement of one matter against another matter. A clock, one wheel turning the other wheel. Or in other words, the sun revolving around itself 24 hours a day, the earth revolving around itself. The sun revolving, and then going around 365, 4 days a year, the earth around the sun. If that stops, if the clock stops, in other words, if the sun is frozen in the sky for 6 hours, let's say by Yeshua, time stops. Time does not keep going because time is a creation. It is a physical manifestation of two things turning against each other. Is the movement of matter. Aging, depreciation. Even when the sun froze in the sky for Yeshua, time stopped. But people got older, people aged. That's reality. Stuff depreciated. That didn't change. The eternal runnings of the things continue to run. So it turns out that time and aging, while they both look alike because we see time and aging as linear, in fact, time is not linear. Time is extraordinarily relative. Masha'en aging is linear. And that is a fascinating thing. It has a lot of, if you think into it, and we've talked about it before when we talked about the idea of time and the creation, and that the Gemara only talks in Rosh Hashanah, only starts calculating time from Vayera Vayiboike Yom HaShishi, from human time, not universal time, even though everybody agrees that the world, Bereshis Bar Elokim, and God created, that happened 5 days before, either the 25th of Elul or the 25th of Adar. But again, we don't calculate that time because time didn't exist, because time was merely a creation that the button had to be pressed. That be everybody like Yom HaShishi. Anyways, let's go further. Ela Moshe Minolan. From where do we know that the sun stood still for Moshe? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Asya Ochel. We will see it from Gezerah Shem, a comparison of the phrases of I will begin. Ksiv Hacha, with regard to Moshe, Ochel Teis Pachtecha. I will begin to put the dread of you upon the nations. V'ksiv Hasam Ochel Gadei Gadelecha. And it's written regarding Yeshua, I will begin to make you great. Just like the promise to Yeshua be made great is the sun will stand in the sky for him an extra 6 hours. So too with Moshe. Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni Omer, Asya taste, put. Ksiv Hacha by Moshe, Ochel taste, Pachtecha, I will begin to put the dread of you. Ksiv Hacha by Yeshua, B'yoyim, today, taste Hashem es Amori, I will put the Amori in fear. Exactly. So now we're on 28:2. 28:2. Rabbi Yochanan says, Asin migufe dekra. It can be learned from the pasuk itself without having to resort to a Gezerah Shava. Regarding Moshe, it says as follows in Parshas Devarim, the beginning, the first parsha of Sefer Devarim, Asher yishmun shemacha v'rogzu v'cholu mipanecha. Whoever hears of your reputation will tremble and be fearful of you. When will the people of the world tremble and become fearful of Klal Yisrael, of our nation? When the sun miraculously stayed east for the sake of Moshe Rabbeinu. Fine. Further, the Mishnah then said, and a city upon which no rain fell, and we said that's a punishment because the pasuk said, I will make rain fall on one city and I will make one city not have rain. This that it says I will cause rain to fall on one city and I will cause that on another city no rain shall fall. Both of them are a curse. No crops will grow in the city where there's no rain. And the city that gets rain will get so much rain, get double rain, that the crops will be ruined. Okay, but now Chazal is going to come and take the words that look negative to us, and they're going to find a positive spin. And this is a great lesson in life. Always look for the positive spin. And Yerushalayim has become like a menstrual woman in their midst. This is really a blessing. Kenida, that Yerushalayim in its downfall is like a nida. Just like a nida, a menstrual woman, is subject to renewed permissibility when she goes to the mikvah and she is mitar herself, she makes herself pure. Yerushalayim, takana, so too Yerushalayim will eventually have its restoration. Yerushalayim has become like a widow. Amar Rav Yehuda lebracha. This also applies to bracha. Ke almana, like an almana, v'loi almana mamish, but not truly a almana, a widow. Eloki isha shehalach ba'al l'minas hayam, like a woman whose husband went overseas, v'yadata lagzola, and his intention is to return to her. Similarly, Yerushalayim is not permanently estranged from Hashem, but eventually one day HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we will be reunited. And therefore I too have made you despised and low, says Hashem about Klal Yisrael. Amar Rabbi Yehuda lebracha, says Rabbi Yehuda, this is also a bracha, because in the eyes of the world we're despised and low. Because of that, so therefore, they did not make us custom officers over police officers. The hated two categories of officials that are widely reviled. This is great. Unfortunately, my father is not yet on the daf. If he gets here, we're going to make him tell the story in the only way that he is capable of telling it. And Hashem will hit Klal Yisrael like the reed that sways in the water, the little reed that sways in the water. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav, says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav Levracha, this is a bracha. The Amar Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni, Amar Rabbi Yomi, because Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni says in the name of Rabbi Yomi, saying, why does it say, excuse me, just give me a second, why does it say in Mishlei, Nemonti Pizze Oye the wounds inflicted by a friend are trustworthy, but the kisses of an enemy are actually deceitful. So in other words, if Iran makes peace overtures, it makes nice, it's deceitful. Better is the curse that Achia ben Shulaimit cursed Klal Yisrael, better than the blessing in which the wicked Bilam blessed Klal Yisrael. Achia Shleini Kalolim Bikone, Achia ben Shleini cursed them with the metaphor of a reed. He said to Klal Yisrael, Hashem will smite Klal Yisrael like the reed that sways in the water. Just as this reed stands in a watery place, which provides the plant with moisture and nutrients, and its stalk grows back when it's cut, and its roots are numerous. And even if all the winds of the world come and blow upon it, it does not budge from its place, and rather it blows in the wind. It blows in the wind. So when the wind subsides, when all the noise is done, and the reed again stands upright in its place. So you could have 6 years, you could have 12 years and 6 years of the Holocaust from the Third Reich. And the winds blew and blew us right and blew us left and all that. When it's over, we slowly go ahead, calm down, and there we are still standing to today. But Bilam Arasha blessed us with the metaphor of a cedar tree, a hard, tight, strong tree. We're now on 28.3. 28.3. Shanema ke'arozim, like a cedar. The point, that's what he did. He said the Jewish people are like a cedar tree by the water. Just like the cedar tree does not really stand in a watery place, it has to be further away, otherwise it would collapse. And its roots are not numerous. And even though if all the regular winds of the world blow on it, they can't budge it from its place. But when the powerful south wind blows, a ruach she'ena mitzua, not normal wind blows, what happens, as we can see, anytime we have a major winds against the palm trees in Florida, what happens? It uproots and overturns itself. That's so that's why when Bilam, he compared us to a cedar, he was telling us, we may not be able to get rid of the Jews easily, but when we do, we're going to knock them down. But in fact, we are like the reed. The Gemara says, but from the reed, that's how pens were made, the fountain pen. It's made from the reed, and that's, of course, is how our Lichter by Sefer Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim. That is how our great books, the Torah Nevi'im Ksuvim, our mezuzahs and our tefillin are written. Tanu Rabbanan, La'olam Yehei Adam Rach Kikana. A person should always be soft like a reed, should be flexible in interpersonal relationships. Kosher to Erez, it shouldn't be hard like a cedar. Ma'aseh, there was a story. Shabbat Rabbi Elazar, but Rabbi Shimon in Migdal Gerar. Rabbi Elazar, the son of Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, who came from the city of Migdal Gedar. He based Rabbi, he came from his Rebbe's house. And he was riding on his donkey, and traveled along the riverbank. And he rejoiced greatly, and was feeling very proud about himself because he learned so much Torah from his Rebbe. So he's feeling great about himself. We're now on Amid Beis. Chaf Amid Beis, 20b1. He came, while riding and feeling good about himself, he chanced upon a person who was exceedingly ugly. Says Rashi, right on top. This was Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, that came to him with Zachlatayv, and he came to him, what he called looking so ugly, to teach him the Yisrael not to be so haughty. Amalai. So this ugly man, this was Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, disguised as an ugly man. Said to Elazar ben Shimon, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, peace upon you, my teacher. Rabbi Elazar did not respond to him. Amalai, instead, Rabbi Elazar said to him, Reika, empty one, Kama Mavaya Oisa Ish. How ugly is that man? Shema Koban Ayircha Mucharim Kemaischav. Are all the people of your city perhaps as ugly as you? Amalai, so the ugly man Eliyahu in disguise said to him, Aini idea, I don't know. Ella loch ve'emel uman shasani. Go tell the craftsman who made me, Hashem, God. Ba'mem revuah klizel sisi. How ugly is this vessel that you made? When Rabbi Elazar heard those words, he realized, how can he say something so stupid? When he realized on himself that he had just insulted the ugly man, Yared ben Chamar, he got down from the Chamar and nishtach keach leponav, bowed, prostrated himself in front of the ugly man. And he said to him, Nanesi lecha, I've spoken out of turn to you. I've spoken wrongly, mecholi, forgive me. I am not going to forgive you until you go to the craftsman who made me. In other words, you go to the Rabbi Shalom and you tell him, tell him how ugly is this vessel that you made. Rabbi Elazar traveled behind this ugly man, seeking his forgiveness until he reached the city. Yatsub and Meir crossing, when they arrived, the people of the city came out in a mass to greet the great Rabbi Elazar. And they were calling out to him, Shalom Aleichem, Rebbe, Rebbe, Moiri, Moiri. Peace upon you, teacher, teacher, master, master. Amalahed, so the ugly man said to the people, Lemiyat Rebbe, Rebbe, who are you calling teacher, teacher? Amalai, they said to him, for the man who's traveling behind you. Amalahan, Rebbe al Yirbu Kimoyisabisol. If this man is a teacher, there shouldn't be many like him in Klal Yisrael. Amalai, so the people of the town said, what's going on? Amalahem, Kach v'Kach Asalini, told the whole story. Amrulai, but the people of the town still said, even though that happened, please forgive him. Sha'adam Gadol b'Torah, because he's a great man in Torah. Amalahem, for your sake, I forgive him. He should not get into the habit of behaving like this, of speaking such a way with such arrogance. Miyad, immediately after getting forgiveness from the man who was really Eliyahu, Nabi Elijah the prophet, Miyad Nichnas Rabbi Elazar and Shimon B'Darish, immediately Rabbi Elazar and Shimon went into the base medrash, went into the shul, to the house of study, and started darshaning, expanding in front of the Olam. A person should always be soft like a reed and not hard like a cedar. And it's for that reason that a reed is used as the pen that is used to write the Torah, Nevi'im, and Kesubah. Good. So the Mishnah says further, a city in which there is a plague or a collapse of buildings, public fasts are immediately set up for those calamities. Tana Rabbanan, the collapse in which it says a public fast, we're talking about buildings that are sturdy and not dilapidated. So in other words, they weren't notfelt. They weren't standing to fall. They were standing to stand. Those not prone to collapse, nor those that are prone to collapse. Look at the way it says, those who are not prone to collapse, and not those that are prone to collapse. So, says the Gemara, what's the double lashon? What's redundancy? Sturdy buildings are the same as buildings that are not prone to collapse. And dilapidated buildings are the same as buildings that are prone to collapse. So why did the Bryce split it into two when it's in fact one? Like the second category is necessary to exclude buildings that collapse due to their excessive height. A skyscraper.
Surfside.
We're coming to it. Wait one more minute. Literally 30 seconds. Then say what you're about to say. Like the second category is to exclude buildings that collapsed due to their excessive height, and they did not put in wind considerations. Inami. Now read the next one. Jerry, read the next one. The Kaiman Aguda de Nahara, building situated along a riverbank, whose foundations may be undermined by the water of the river, although they may be inherently sturdy structures, they are nevertheless prone to collapse. Now, Jerry, Surfside. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. Exactly the words. You cannot make this up. When I learned this Gemara, I had the exact same words that came out of my mouth. Surfside. In fact, the building in Surfside had both of these. The building at Surfside was a ches. Clearly, when one of those cheses were put into its structure, however it was piled into the other structure, clearly was shoddy work. Over 30 years, it began loosening, and underneath the water line was chopping away at the foundation. So you had the waterline foundation tilting it going this way. You had the connection being separated. It is literally both of these 2 points. The Gemara here says there would be no fast for such a thing. You should have predicted those. In other words, the Torah is saying that the Gemara is saying a Mariti Kazach. Don't, I'm putting it in quotes, don't blame the Rebbeinu Shloim for everything that happens. Sometimes blame yourself. Who told you? And so the fact that now Florida is checking the waterline underpinnings. I could tell you this in Tower 41 in Miami Beach, no question about it. They are boosting up the foundation. I just spoke to somebody yesterday about this, but I heard that in Boca Raton, along the water, those big hotels along the water of Boca Raton, they're doing the same thing. Okay, because they're waking up late, and it's going to cost. The truth of the matter is, we guys should thank Hashem Yisparach that the Jewish community, the Orthodox Jewish community, is living 3 miles from the beach, so that our structures are really not thing. In fact, I live closer to the water in Brooklyn, New York. I'm only a mile off Coney Island, in Atlantic. In Boca Raton, we're 3 miles off the Atlantic. So in fact, we're very lucky in that sense. Anyways, the Gemara says, weiter. Let's get 20b2. 20b2. Says the Gemara. 20b2. In the case of the dilapidated wall in Adoi, Rav and Shmuel would not go underneath it, even though the wall had been standing in place for 13 years. Yomi Echad, one day, Ikar Rav Ada bar Abba lost, and Rav Ada bar Abba came there. Amalei Shmuel Rav. Shmuel said to Rav, let's go take the detour around the wall, like we always do, because we don't want to pass underneath the dangerous wall, even though it's been standing for 13 years, because any day it can come down. Amalei, Rav said to Shmuel, we don't have to go, we don't have to make a detour today. Because Rav Ada bar Abba is with us. The Nofesh Chusei, whose merit is great, Veloy Mistafina, and we're not afraid of the wall falling. So now we learned something else. While if you go make your building too high and not take into account the wind, and you build it along the water line, you don't go fast over there, because you could sort of you got to blame yourself. Nonetheless, if you have great people coming along, Min Shamayim, they will go the other way. They will guard them, and they will watch them from any mapilas, from any danger that will come along. Rav Huna had wine in a certain dilapidated house. He wanted to remove it before the house collapsed, but he was afraid. He said, what happens if I go in there and that's when the house collapsed? He brought Rav Ada bar Abba to the house. He says Shemati Adivane, and he engaged him in Torah, in a major Torah discussion, until all the wine was removed. Bossa did not back after Rabada went out. Nothing they saw the dilapidated house collapsed. Argish Rabada Baraba realized what Rav Huna had done by bringing him to the house. But he obviously took offense that he was used in such a manner. Sabala Hoder Rav Yanai, because he held like Rav Yanai Leoilam Al Yamed Adam Emakim Sakana B'Yoma Osali Nes. A person should not stand in a dangerous place and say a miracle will be performed for me. Shema Ein Oisin Loy Nes, because maybe a miracle will not perform for him. So this would mean, for an example, if somebody walked into a high crime neighborhood, he shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm protected. I'm such a great guy. I'll be protected from heaven." No, you just put yourself into a sakana. You have no business putting yourself into a dangerous place. This is similar to when somebody asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, "Is he allowed to play football?" Guy was in college and he was good at it, and he wanted to play football. And Rav Moshe wrote that a Jew is only allowed to work in professions that are safe. Professions that are not safe, you're not allowed to work on. It's an Ism in Atayra. And he said football is inherently dangerous. People get injured all the time, and you're not allowed to play. You're not allowed to put yourself into a specific dangerous situation. And even if you're going to say that an ace will be performed for him, okay, it then will be deducted from his merits, right? There's a balance sheet. It's going to be deducted from his balance sheet. What's the proof that teaches us this? We had it a few parashas ago, where Yaakov Avinu, when he slept on the stones and he saw the dream, the sulam, the ladder with the malachim going up and down. The pasuk says, I've been diminished as a result of all the kindness and the truth that you have done for me. What were the deeds of Rav Ada bar Abba that made him so great, universally known to be great? The Talmid of Rav Zera asked him. Some say the question was asked to Rav Ada bar Abba. How are you zeichel to longevity, to live such a long life? In all my days, I never showed anger in my house. 20b3. Nor did I ever walk in front of somebody, or did I ever walk that was greater than I. Here, heart deep in my voice, I'm a two nafais. And I never thought about Torah in filthy alleys. And I never walked 4 amas without studying Torah or without wearing tefillin in places that I was allowed to do so. And I never fell asleep in the house of study, not a regular or even a nap. And I never rejoiced in the stumbling of my fellow. I never, said, yeah, it was coming to him. And I never called my friend by his nickname. Or by his surname. I always called him by the name he was given at the Bris Milah. Now the Gemara starts talking about number 4. Rav Huna brought Rav Ada bar Abba in order to get into the dilapidated house in order to get out his wine. But now the Gemara starts talking about the greatness of Rav Huna himself. Amalei, just give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Amalei Rabba L'Rafim Ba'Popo. Name alone Mar Mahani Mili Meosa Davi Obed Rav Huna. Could you please tell us some of the notable deeds of Rav Huna? Amalei Biyankusei Loy Dechrina. I can't tell you anything from the youth of Rav Huna, but I can tell you Nisivusei Dechrina. I can tell you about it from his old age. The Chol Yomi De'eva Hoy Mafkin Lei Bekuharta Da'ava. On every cloudy day, they would carry him out in a gold sedan chair. He had a Rolls Royce. He was very wealthy, Rav Huna. He went out. I'm sorry, we're living in Boca Raton, a Maserati. Sorry about that. Okay. The Sayula la Kula Mosa, and he would inspect the entire city. And anywhere he found a wall that was dilapidated, he would have it demolished so that it would not fall during the approaching storm. If the owner had the ability to rebuild it, the owner would be responsible for rebuilding it. If the owner could not bear the expense, he would rebuild it from his own funds. The whole Panya de Shapsa every Friday afternoon, having Mishtade Shuki Lishuki, would send an agent to the market. And any remaining vegetables in the hands of the growers after everybody bought for Shabbos, he would buy it from them, and then he would throw it into the river. And this way, he made sure that the growers would come every week with an abundance of vegetables, etc. So the first question is, why did he throw it into the sea? Let him give the vegetables to the poor. So this is what he said. Listen to this. Because there are times that they would rely on Rav Huna's gifts and not come to the market to buy for Shabbos. If you ever wanted to hear the perfect explanation why welfare without rules is no good, it creates dependency, you just learned it right now in this Gemara. Why didn't he give the vegetables that he bought up to the Aniyim? Because then they'll come to rely on Rav Huna and not come to the market. That means work during the week and try to come up with some money on their own to buy goods for Shabbos. Dependency is a disaster. The Rambam, Zechenu Lebracha, says the highest level of charity is teaching somebody a parnasa, so that he can support himself. That's the highest level of charity. The idea
give a man a fish, he has a meal for the day. Teach him how to fish, he has a meal for the rest of his life.
Exactly. Perfect. Look at these words. It's 6 words in the Gemara. I have never heard a better explanation of what Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the great senator of New York, said when in 1965 or whatever they created the Welfare Act, right? He said you're going to create generations of dependency. Zimnin, the Samcha, the Dayu, B'layotzel, Mizbah. So says the Gemara further, let him throw them to the animals, let him feed it to the animals as opposed to the river. And here again, we have an unbelievable lesson in life. Kesava, machol odom ein machila lebehema. Food fit for human consumption should not be fed to animals. In other words, kavod abrios, the honor of the creation. It's not what a person should not feel like an animal, and don't treat a person like an animal. They are 2 separate things. Do not bring people down. And let me tell you what this really is. In a secular world, like we live in today, unfortunately, where nobody believes in nothing, and see, everybody says all we are is chance, and it's the luck of the draw, whether you were born human or you were born an animal, and there's actually no difference between us, right? Well, in that case, you've simply brought mankind equal with animals. The Gemara says absolutely not. Mankind were created in the image of God. Know that. And that is the difference. We were endowed by our Creator with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Take out the Creator, and then it's not endowed by the Creator. Then it's endowed by the government, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and that means it's not an inherent right in anybody. It's a given right by somebody. And our founding fathers understood the great flaw in that. It's endowed by the Creator. That's what this Gemara is saying right over here. Yes, Jerry. Okay. So let's keep going. We're almost done for the day. Okay, 20b4. So Lloyd Mizabin Klal, let him not buy it at all since he wasn't going to use it. Said the Gemara Nimsa Mashchilos and Lobai, that would cause the growers to refrain from bringing so much produce because they don't want to have the leftover produce that's going to go bad over the weekend. So therefore, what do you call he had to do it? Says the Gemara, Kihabi Milsa de Asusa, when he had medicine that was not available to the public, he would fill a water jug with it, and he would hang it on the door frame of his house. Whoever needs, let him come and take. He knew the ways of shifta. So there are two different explanations. Rashi says, minute shaden, that shifta is a demon, a shade, who attack people with unwashed hands. Rabbeinu Chananel, which you can find in towards the upper right corner on the Hebrew side, says Milsa the Shita Pirish Mashke Sharapur. It was a fluid of medicine. He understood to make the shifta, which is a fluid of medicine, to heal those people who ate with unwashed hands and got disease from the germs that were on their hands. That's Rabbeinu Chananel. And probably the Rambam would probably learn the way Rabbeinu Chananel learned, that we're dealing with a specific kind of penicillin. He would place it in a jug of water and suspend it. Whoever needs water to wash his hands before eating should come to do so and not put his life in danger. When he would sit down to eat bread, he would open his door and say, whoever is in need of food, come and eat. So Rava said, all of these I too could keep. I could also do this, except for the last one, which is he would open his door and say, whoever wanted to come eat, come eat. This I could not do. Now we're on tomorrow's stuff. Let's just go a little further here. Because the troops of poor people in Mechuzah are too numerous. We have my father here. That is, we just got to tomorrow's daf, Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph. However, we were waiting for you to show up. Because today we learned the Gemara about the reed and the cedar tree.
Right.
I'd like you to tell the story.
That's the story I used to tell you all
tell
the time.
The story. Go ahead. With all the details. All right.
You
Since
say
my
the story.
father is here, okay, and we've already finished the daf, even though we'll go a little further, my father used to say, once upon a time in the forest, there was this huge cedar tree, and he was full of he was a bald guy, but he was a big shot, and he would sing, I'm the mightiest cedar tree, I'm the mightiest cedar. Just picture my father doing this, okay? And finally, he got a little tickle at his feet, and he looks down, and he sees this little reed saying, be quiet up there, you're making so much noise. And the tree says, who are you, you little reed? I'm the mightiest cedar tree. My father said oak tree, but yeah, cedar tree, and you're just a little reed. And then came the big storm. And in the big storm, the little reed blew back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the big tree was standing there, all strength, singing, I'm the mightiest cedar tree. And then in the middle, he was saying, I'm the mightiest cedar. And there was a crack. Tree, and he looks down and he sees a little crack on his plate, and he keeps singing, and then the wind blows again, and then it cracks some more, and he goes, the mighty is. And the reed blows back and forth, and then the storm slowly but surely passes, and the reed stands straight. And as my father would explain, the tree is Rome, the grass is Klal Yisrael. And that was today's Gemara that we learned. I'm not being as dramatized as my father was.
You didn't forget the story.
Oh, of course I didn't forget the story. I even remember you used to say this mightiest oak tree. In fact, it's a cedar tree. So there you go. Anyways, we're on Chaf Aleph. We've got about another 7 minutes to 9:30. So let's just go further because the daf is an extraordinarily long daf. If you take a look, so we'll cut into tomorrow and make it easier. We got about 5 minutes. So here we go.
You said the story of Rabbi Yochanan and Ilfa.
Yeah, we're doing it right. We're doing it right now. That's
Oh.
where we're up to. Chaf Aleph, Amid Aleph, 21A1. It's tomorrow's daf. So here we go. Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan hayagarse bi'araisa. Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan were learning Torah together. Techika lahu milsa tuva, and they were in terrible financial straits. Things were pressing on them terribly. Amru neikam enizav nabit iska. All right, and listen, what could we do? Let's go up and go and undertake a business venture to earn some money. Nekayim benafshin, in order to fulfill. But among you there should be no destitute. In other words, let's not go collect money, because as we said before from Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the words that we said before, because the poor people might rely on Rav Huna's gifts and not strive to earn their own money. Welfare by itself is not a good thing, right? So obviously, if you have to, it goes without saying one should do it. But the point is, one should obviously try very much to earn their own way. Okay, the previous generations, I remember it clearly, would say, I'd rather die than take from the government. I remember that very clearly. Anyways, Oslu, Oisve, Toise, Guda, Re'ia. They went out, and along the way, in trying to earn a living, they sat down along a dilapidated wall. Now, obviously, they were unaware that it was dilapidated and it was capable of falling. Okay? So they were eating bread. Asu trey malachi asharis. 2 malachi asharis came by. Now, here's the situation. We learned before that every person is always malava, or always carried forward with 2 angels, one on the right, one on the left, which is sort of why we say Shalom Aleichem Malachi Asharis Friday night. So it could very well be these were the angels of the two Tanoim, the 2 Amoraim. So Shamat Rabbi Yochanan heard one Malach say to the other Malach, Lishtei Alayu Hai Gudo B'Nikliu. Let's topple this wall and kill them. Because they're forsaking the life of the world to come and accompany themselves with regard only be concerned to the transitory life. In other words, these 2 guys are so great at learning. Why are they leaving the base metrics to try to go earn a living? They should rely on the Kadosh Baruch Hu. They're one of the few who should really be sitting and learning in Koilel. Amalei, Idach, Shavkinu, leave them alone. Because there's one among them whose hour is at hand to obtain greatness, and it's not his time to die. In other words, he's about to be Oilel and Gedula. He's about to become famous and great. Rabbi Yochanan Shama, Ilfa Loi Shama. Rabbi Yochanan heard the Malachim and Ilfa did not. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan Ilfa Shama Mar Midi. Rabbi Yochanan said to Ilfa, did you hear anything? Amalei Loi, no. And you notice he called him Mar, master. Even though he was pretty sure that he hadn't heard, he still called him master. Amar. So Rabbi Yochanan said, since I overheard this and Ilfa did not, it's evident therefore that I was meant to hear this, that my hour of greatness is at hand, and therefore he said, I better go back to yeshiva. Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, I'm turning back to return to the yeshiva to study. V'uki b'nafshi, and I will fulfill in me, ki lo yechtal ebdon mikarev aretz. The poor will never cease from the midst of the land. So you have two different parts. Before they said efes ki yivachai evai, but among you there should be no destitute. But there's another passage that says lo yechtal ebdon mikarev aretz. The poor will never cease from the midst of the land. Rabbi Yochanan hada ilpa lo hada. Rabbi Yochanan returned to the yeshiva when Ilpa did not return to the yeshiva. Ada also Ilpa. When Rabbi Ilpa came back to the yeshiva from his venture, from his business venture, Malach Rabbi Yochanan had been crowned and became the Rosh Yeshiva of the yeshiva. He became the Rosh Yeshiva of the yeshiva. Okay? Now, Amrali, he said to Ilpa, if you master that sat and studied Torah, like Habib Malach Mar, the other master, Rabbi Yochanan, would never have been crowned. Because in fact, Ilpa was a greater than Rabbi Yochanan in learning. So the Ilpa got all upset. So to refute the criticism of his actions, Ilpa went out to demonstrate, in fact, that his learning, his scholarship, was greater than Rabbi Yochanan's despite his leaving the yeshiva. He went up and balanced himself on the mast of the ship. He did what he called that he said to indicate, even though that the Rebbe's taught that Torah's scholarship is not found among the traveling merchants, his brief foray into commerce did not diminish his knowledge. Omar, he said, is there anybody who can ask me about a brayso from the editions of Rav Chia and Rav Oishia, and I will demonstrate its basis from a Mishnah, from the Mishnah of Rebbe HaKadosh. So, Asa hu sabatanale, a certain old man came, the Loshin ahu saba, Zok Toifis in Masechtas Chulin. I believe it's the top of Daf Vav, the sixth stop in Masechtas Chulin. Every time the Gemara brings Ahu Saba, a certain old man, that is Eliyahu Hanavi Zachol HaTov. That is Elijah the prophet. Ahu Saba Tonile. He brought a certain old man in taught, and he learned the following brayso. If somebody says to the trustee of his estate, to the administrator, the trustee of the estate, give a shekel to my sons each week to meet their expenses, it would be appropriate in their case to give them a selah because the family was large and one shekel would not meet their needs. We give them a selah. This, in fact, is very, very controversial because the father set rules, conditions on his will. Now, the reality is a father cannot set conditions on his will because Yerusha, inheritance, means when the father passes away, the sons automatically inherit, period, lock, stop, and barrel. He can't put conditions on the thing.
I don't understand that.
Right, I know. I'm saying that is the first logic of what we're saying over here. Now, in fact, Jerry, that isn't 100% true what I said.
That's correct.
We see that especially if the children are young, that you most certainly can go ahead and put conditions so that they do not eat up the entire inheritance, 1, 2, 3, as unfortunately happens. Okay, number 2, Jerry, what really happens in our world, and this is very, very, very important. Jerry, how many children, B'li'ayin Hara, do you have?
2.
A boy and a girl?
Yep.
Okay, who is your inheritor min HaTorah?
The Torah is going to be my son anyway, and he's a Bechor.
Okay, that means not your wife and not your daughter. This is important. Jerry, let me see you because this is important. Okay? This is very, very important.
Yep.
My father has...
Hello. Repeat. Hello. Jeff wants you to repeat that.
I'm going to repeat it. I need everybody to listen to this. Very important. And because we have my father here, because my father, I am also his only son. Mina Torah, biblically speaking, okay, only a son inherits, and a Bechar inherits Pishnaim, gets double of what the other sons get. The daughters and the wife are not get zero. Why? Because Minat Torah, the men are supposed to support the women and they're supposed to do the right thing. Nonetheless, and my father has done this, and my uncles have all done this, because in each case of the Zimmermans, and on my mother's side, the Rosemans, we all were one son and daughters. 20 years ago, and again now, my father did what's known as Ramoish's Savah. And in essence, it says, 5 seconds before my demise, before my 120 years are up, I give everything away as a present. And this is how I'm doing it. If mommy is still here, she gets the thing. And when mommy is gone, what do you call it? This is how it's split. 1 quarter, 1 quarter, 1 quarter, 1 quarter, in my case, 4 kids. Or in Jerry's case, my 50% to this child, 50% to that child. It is incumbent on anyone who has a daughter, no matter how nice and beautiful and wonderful is your son or sons, you must do this biblically. You go to the rabbi and you write it up, and then you legally put it into the will. That what I wrote over here is my, what do you call it? It is absolutely vital. This has been going on since the beginning of day, because unfortunately, what the Torah wanted, understanding how vulnerable women on their own are, they wanted the men to be responsible. That was
Let
the
me tell you,
logic.
the Torah, as good as the Torah was, did not think about the almana.
Did not, well, no. Actually, it did think about the almana.
No, because it was going to the son. So it was the son's responsibility to take care of mommy.
But you're going to see, right. So in other words, because there's a mitzvah of kibbud aim, it is soon. Number one, the mother can live in the house. As long as she doesn't marry somebody else, she can't be thrown out of the house. She still has her nichse melog and the whole thing, because that was what the ksuba was about. Nonetheless, today, in today's world, one cannot rely on the kindness and the goodness of their children. You cannot do that. And my father and I together did this many years ago. We've reiterated it today. I told my father a long time, don't leave me a problem. Don't leave this in my hand. I don't want this. And every one of my cousins did the same. We all did this. It is absolutely by Jeff. This is absolutely vital in planning. What do you call it? You must protect your wife and your daughter. And there are a lot of ways to do it. In short, that's what this Gemara over here underlying is going on. Let's just keep going over here 1 more minute. Let's get to the end of the story. Give them a seller. The im ama al titnu shekel. But if he said, he didn't say the words, give a shekel to my sons each week. He said, give them only 1 shekel. We're now on 21A2. 21A2. Ein noisem lahem ela shekel. We only give them a shekel, even though it's insufficient for the needs. Ve'em ama mesu yirshu akerim tachteim. Should they die, let others inherit the remembrance of the estate in their stead. Bein shiyam etnu, bein shiyam al titnu. Whether he says give them a shekel or whether he says give them only a shekel, and noisem ela shekel, we only give them a shekel. Amalei, ha mani ramei the Omar mitzvah lekayim divrei hameis. There's a gemara, there's a mitzvah that what do you call it? That you try to hold up the words of the deceased. Okay? Rameya, if you read the bottom, number 15, Rameya espoused the principle that it's an obligation to fulfill the wishes of the deceased regarding his estate. If he deposited it with the trustee, we conserve the estate so some of it will remain for the third party to inherit all the way. In other words, generation skipping, where you put things aside also for your grandchildren so that you make sure that it continues down the line. And that is very important. So in fact, the idea of generation skipping, in fact, existed at the time of the Gemara. Just as I always say, if you learn enough, you realize Chazal thought of every possibility. It is amazing how modern they were, especially in the monetary dealings. Very good, everybody. We are now up to the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu, which is fascinating itself, and we'll pick it up from here tomorrow, 21:82.